The train screeched as it carved through the early morning fog, its metallic howl swallowed by a silence thick enough to taste. Inside the packed car, 1,000 tiny dramas played out behind tired eyes. Commuters clutching coffee cups like lifelines, students bent under the weight of textbooks, daydreamers staring out the window at cities that blurred into watercolor streaks. And right in the center of that everyday chaos sat Maya, a 16-year-old black girl with headphones half plugged in and a sketchbook balanced loosely on her knees. Her mother, Denise, sat beside her, flipping through a folder of medical papers, her face a mix of exhaustion and hope, the kind carved after years of trying to hold a family together alone. When the train jolted, Maya's pencil rolled across the aisle and tapped against the shoe of a woman wearing a pale blue blazer, her posture sharp as a blade, her eyes narrowing before she even bent to look down. The woman glanced at Maya as though the teenager had personally offended her by existing. Maya gave a small, apologetic smile, but the woman didn't return it. Instead, she nudged the pencil back with the pointed toe of her heel, her lips curving into something bitter. Maya reached to grab it, her fingers hovering inches from the woman's shoe, when the woman snapped, "Don't touch me!" The entire row fell silent. Maya blinked, confused, unsure if she'd misheard. But the woman didn't stop. Her voice grew louder, slicing through the car. "I know how you people are," she said, her tone sour with accusation. "Always invading space that isn't yours." Her words hit like stones thrown into water, rippling, echoing, drawing startled looks from passengers who suddenly pretended they were extremely absorbed in their phones. Denise's head snapped up from her papers, her eyes locking on Maya, then on the woman whose voice carried an arrogance built on years of believing she could say such things without consequence. Maya's cheeks flushed with heat, fear, embarrassment, and a sting she knew too well. The woman in the blue blazer leaned back, arms crossed, glaring at the teenager as though she were some unwelcome shadow. "Honestly, the train used to be decent," she added loudly, making sure her performance had an audience. "Now it's full of—" She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. The silence in the car tightened, suffocating, bending the air until even breathing felt like choosing sides. Maya's hand trembled as she clutched her sketchbook to her chest. She dealt with looks before, whispers, under-the-breath comments, but rarely something so open, so venomous, so public. Denise placed a gentle hand on her daughter's knee, a silent message, "Stay calm." But the woman wasn't finished. She leaned forward like a prosecutor ready to deliver a final blow. "It's always the same. No respect, no manners. Your generation, your people, ruin everything." This time, the words didn't just hit Maya. They sliced into her mother like a blade she'd seen coming for years. And when the train lurched again, rattling the overhead lights, Maya wished, deep down, desperately, that she could disappear inside the noise. Denise inhaled deeply, the kind of breath someone takes when they are balancing on the thin, cracked line between restraint and eruption. She closed her folder calmly, though her fingers trembled. She had promised herself long ago that Maya would never see her lose control in front of people who already believed the worst about them. She knew how the world worked. She understood how easily a black mother defending her child could be twisted into a weapon itself. So she squeezed Maya's hand, grounding her, anchoring her, before turning slowly, deliberately, to the woman in the blue blazer. "Would you like to repeat that?" Denise asked, her voice low, steady, almost soft, yet it carried a power that made the woman straighten rigidly, surprised by the challenge. The woman sniffed dismissively. "I don't owe you an explanation," she replied, waving a manicured hand as though Denise were an inconvenience. "I'm just tired of people who don't know how to behave." Denise nodded thoughtfully, as though she were studying a case file. "Interesting," she said, "because from what I've seen, the only person misbehaving here is the adult who feels the need to berate a child over a pencil." A few passengers shifted, some glancing up now with tentative curiosity. The woman opened her mouth to fire back, but Denise continued, the calm in her voice more formidable than anger. "You look at my daughter," she said, "and you've already decided who she is. You think you know her story, her character, her value, but you don't know a thing." Maya watched her mother, her eyes widening. She had never seen her speak like this, measured, sharp, every word polished by years of swallowed truths. Denise leaned forward slightly, meeting the woman's eyes with unwavering steadiness. "My daughter didn't invade your space," she said, "but you invaded hers with your prejudice." The woman scoffed, but Denise pressed on. "She's 16, she said, her voice softening as she glanced at Maya. 16, and already old enough to recognize the kind of contempt you carry. She sketches the world the way she wishes it could be, where people see with heart before they judge with bias." Maya felt her throat tighten, tears burning at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them back. The woman crossed her arms defensively. "Oh, please, don't make this dramatic. I simply want people to respect boundaries." Denise's expression didn't waver. "Boundaries," she repeated, her tone cool. "Like the boundary you crossed, the moment you decided her skin color explained her actions better than her character did." A hush swept over the train. Someone coughed. Another person set down their phone. The woman's face reddened, her certainty beginning to crumble. "I didn't say anything about race," she insisted. "You implied plenty," Denise replied. "Your meaning was loud. Everyone heard it." Some passengers nodded subtly. The woman's eyes flickered nervously, scanning the crowd as though searching for someone willing to defend her. No one did. The train rumbled on, metal groaning like it understood the tension. Denise leaned back, exhaling. "We all have moments," she said, addressing not just the woman but the entire car. "Moments where our frustration spills over. But when that frustration turns into targeting a child because of who she is, not what she's done, that's when we have to hold ourselves accountable." Her voice strengthened. "Because someone like you might think you're teaching her a lesson about staying in her place, but all you're really doing is showing your own lack of grace." The woman's jaw clenched, her confidence fractured like brittle glass. But Denise wasn't done, not yet. She turned to Maya, her tone now warm, gentle. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said, "and you don't shrink yourself because someone else refuses to grow." The train dipped into a tunnel, the lights flickering above them. For a beat, the entire world seemed suspended in darkness, until the light returned, revealing faces softened, eyes widened, and one mother who had finally chosen to speak truths she had carried for a lifetime. When the train emerged into daylight again, something had shifted, not just in the air, but in the passengers themselves. People who had been silent, complicit bystanders moments earlier, now exchanged looks of discomfort, guilt, recognition. A young man near the door cleared his throat, then said quietly, "She's right. You were out of line." A woman across the aisle murmured her agreement. The woman in the blue blazer stiffened, as if bracing against a tide she could no longer push back. "I didn't mean," she began, but her voice faltered. Apologies are heavy things, especially when the truth sits like a stone on your chest. Denise waited, patient but unyielding. The woman swallowed hard. "I'm sorry," she said finally, her voice low and strained. It was not perfect, not heartfelt, not enough to erase the harm, but it was something. Maya looked at her mother, seeing her differently now. Not just as the woman who worked double shifts, not just the woman who carried the weight of everything alone, but as someone who had learned how to transform pain into wisdom so her daughter wouldn't have to inherit the same scars. Denise placed an arm around Maya's shoulder, lifting the sketchbook again. "Draw," she whispered, "not to escape, but to reclaim." Maya nodded, her heart swelling with something warm and powerful. Pride. She flipped to a clean page and began sketching the train car just as it was, the faces, the angles, the tension, the truth. She sketched the woman in the blue blazer, too, not as a villain, but as a person, flawed, frightened, human. Because her mother had taught her that people weren't just the worst thing they'd ever done, but also the choices they made afterward. When the train slowed at the next stop, the woman stood, hesitated, then turned back to Maya. "I hope your day gets better," she said. It was clumsy, small, but genuine. Maya nodded silently. And as the woman stepped off the train, the doors hissing shut behind her, the world seemed to exhale. Denise kissed the top of Maya's head. "You see," she murmured, "the world will try to tell you who you are, but you, only you, get to decide what story you write." Outside the window, the city unfurled, messy, complex, imperfect. But inside that train car, Maya held her sketchbook like a promise, her pencil ready to carve new truths into a world that desperately needed them. And for the first time that morning, she felt not small, but powerful. If this story moved you, even a little, then take a moment right now to breathe with it, sit with it, and ask yourself what you would have done if you were on that train. Would you have stayed silent, or would you have stood up for someone who needed support? These moments happen every day in small ways, in big ways, in ways we sometimes notice and other times choose not to. But change begins with awareness, and awareness begins with conversations like this one. If you believe stories like Maya's matter, stories that expose uncomfortable truths, challenge harmful behaviors, and empower people to do better, then I need your help. My channel exists for one reason: to shine a light on real moments of injustice and the powerful lessons they can teach us. Every comment, every share, every subscriber helps push these stories into the world, where they can spark reflection, courage, and most importantly, change. So if this video stirred something in you, drop a comment below. Tell me how it made you feel. Tell me what you would have done. Tell me a moment when you or someone you loved faced prejudice and rose above it. Your story might be the one someone else needs to hear today. Share this video with someone who needs this reminder, someone who needs to understand the impact of their words, someone who needs to be encouraged to stand up instead of standing by. And finally, subscribe, not just to support the channel, but to join a community that refuses to stay silent, a community that chooses compassion over apathy, a community that believes every voice matters, every story matters, and every lesson has the power to change someone's life. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and thank you for choosing to be part of something bigger.